Hello, my name is Vasil Tarasenko, I'm a Russian attorney. And first of all, friendly reminder, we have a Telegram and Facebook channels. Find the link in the descriptions and subscribe to them. One of the things a foreigner must do while in Russia is to notify migration authorities of his or her place of stay, that is, register. How it gets done and when it's required we'll discuss today. So let's get started. First of all, I warn you that registering for migration purposes in Russian постановка, миграционный учёт isn't to be confused with a registration at place of residence. Регистрация по месту жительства по-русски. The latter resembles permanent registration at the place of residence of Russian citizens and is a stamp in the passport or residence permit, plus it's available only for Russian residents. But today we will talk about registration for migration purposes. This is not a stamp, but a separate document with an address and is issued mostly to foreigners with a visa or without visa if the law allows it, and in some cases to foreigners with residency. This document is a must for foreign nationals when in Russia. Who registers a foreigner? This is, as a rule, their inviting party, university if they're talking about student, employer if we're talking about an employee or person who invited an alien on a private visa. The landlord registers a non-citizen who rents their apartment. Inpatient medical facilities and various hotel registers and deregisters their patients and guests. However, a foreigner is responsible for their own registration if they are going to live in an apartment or house owned by them. But does that mean that if the latter case is not yours, you don't need to watch this video? Not really. Here we will cover some very important points to keep in mind. Where does it get done? A non-citizen can be registered through the Migration Department of the Ministry of Internal Affairs or through intermediaries, namely the Multifunctional Center or on the State Services website Gosuslуги. In case of initial registration, you can also apply by mail. What does it look like? Registration is a tier of part of the arrival notification form. It's a document with cells in which the foreign national's name, passport data, address and the period until which this registration is valid are written. We will talk about this period in this video, but later. Note that this is an important paper and you shouldn't throw it away until you get a new registration or fly out of the country. What documents are needed to register someone? Of course, a passport with a valid visa or residence permit is always required. The exemption from the visa requirement is visa-free foreigners if the period of visa-free stay in Russia hasn't expired, but there are few such countries. You will also be asked to provide a migration card and previous registration if this is not the initial registration. The remaining documents depend on where the non-citizen lives and on what basis. For instance, the owner of a dwelling where you will be living provides proof of ownership. What is the expiration date of the registration? Please note that registration is issued not just to a certain person but to a certain passport, visa or residence permit, work patent and address. In other words, the date your invited party can and will indicate in the registration is limited by the date of your permit documents. If you were given a new one-year visa, your registration card will expire also in a year. But if your visa is valid 1 year, but the passport expires in 8 months, for example, the expiration date in the registration will be in 8 months. That is, the shortest period is indicated. When you move to another place, the registration is also to be reissued. The same applies to situations where you changed your passport, no matter why the old one expired or you lost your previous passport or some personal data have changed. If you come from a visa-free country without a visa just as a tourist, your registration will be valid for no more than 3 months. How fast should a foreigner register? It depends on the type of registration. Initial registration means that a foreign national has just arrived from abroad and must report their arrival to the Ministry of Internal Affairs within 7 working days after crossing the border. There are exceptions to the rule, namely citizens of Belarus, Ukraine and highly qualified specialists and their families members, regardless of their origin, can register within 90 days. Foreigners from Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and citizens of European Economic Union member states working in Russia are registered within 30 days. And those who come from Uzbekistan or Tajikistan can undergo this procedure within 15 days. Registration at a new place of residence, if you already have a registration, is also completed within 7 working days, with the exception of highly qualified specialists. They have the right to do this within 30 days. Please note that this includes hospitalization and hotel accommodation. Hotels and hospitals register non-citizens at their address, so once you are discharged or check out, you will have to re-register at home. Such facilities submit information to the Ministry of Internal Affairs quickly, within a day, through a special program. So if you are staying at a hotel for only a couple of days, don't think that this doesn't apply to you. Registration is not required for sailors and crew members of air and other transport who make stop in Russia as a part of crew or participate in international traffic and are at work. And if you stay in Russia for no longer than 7 days, their registration isn't required either. To extend registration, a foreign has only 3 working days, or if the current registration expires early, then until its expiration. As I said, registration is limited by the validity of the permanent document, so a new one is obtained. For example, when renewing or receiving for the first time a visa or work permit, receiving residence permit, or when receiving a new passport. Recommendations. Usually, foreigners invited by companies or universities don't encounter problems related to registration, although situations vary. The same true for hospitals and hotels, but it's very easy to run into a landlord who simply doesn't want to register you. So I recommend you ask the potential landlord about it before moving into the apartment. Also, make sure that the arrival form that you or your friend who invited you fills out is up to date. They do change from time to time, even if only slightly. Another thing that may seem obviously is to keep your inviting party informed about your movements and changes in documents. For violations of the migration registration rule, a fine from 5,000 to 7,000 rubles is provided for both non-citizen and their inviting party. And if the foreigner was invited not by an individual but by an organization, the fine can reach 500,000 rubles for one violation. And the foreign national can be deported from the country for 2 fines within a year, so take it seriously. That is all for today. Hope you found this video useful. My name is Vasily Tarasenko, I'm a Russian attorney. Subscribe please. Bye.